relate to them spatially. And then on the left is the same information in kind of textual form, so I can see precisely where they are and if they've added any comments, what they said. Which sometimes is boring, right? In the middle of a Tuesday it might be boring, but oftentimes on a Friday night it's really kind of telling information actually, because I can see, you know, which of my friends are out drinking, which of them are staying at home with the kids, which of them are at the gym, you know, and it allows me to get a sense for what's happening in a really quick bite. There's no real reason for this slide except that I thought it was kind of cool that my friend checked in at the Royals home plate yesterday. So, yet another example of how this kind of technology is mildly amusing. So, I've been talking about kind of the philosophical things that make this interesting to people at large. Now I'd like to go down kind of to more of a product level and talk about 3 real use cases that I think are just going to be compelling to practically everyone, I think, in the long run. And the first kind of class of thing that I think is interesting to people is recording. And in Gowalla we express this through the metaphor of the passport. So, you know, I think people have a very intuitive, kind of cultural, nostalgic understanding of why passports are cool. Unfortunately, in the modern world, passports are not nearly as cool as they once were. You know, you can like backpack across Europe for the summer and maybe if you're lucky get 1 or 2 stamps in your passport. But yeah, people understand how cool that is, right? And oftentimes real passports are heirlooms, you know, because they tell a story. You know, it's this artifact that actually kind of tells what your path through the world was, maybe over a long time. So that's interesting, and yet it's pretty limited because it's limited to these highlights of when you cross national borders. And so I think it could be vastly more interesting if people actually had recording, you know, of data through both the highlights and the really mundane stuff. So, you know, the fact that I went to Starbucks this afternoon, on one hand, is extremely boring. But if I was there with 5 old friends and they all posted comments and photos and stuff that were attached to that kind of social object, all of a sudden that mundane kind of check-in becomes much more interesting. So here's how the Gowalla passport looks right now. You can see my normal profile information, and at the bottom you see kind of my recent history. But I think the most interesting view is this, which is the passport stamps view. So through this, you can kind of see what the last couple weeks of my life have looked like. You know, I took a trip to New York last week, did all the touristy stuff, checked in at Rockefeller Center, and then a bunch of media outlets, blah, blah, blah. So it's like both these really awesome things that you might actually imagine taking a picture of and uploading to Flickr, but also the really pretty mundane stuff, like practically every meal I've had. And over time, though, that kind of data becomes a fascinating kind of story of my life. So that's recording. The second kind of big class of interesting things that I think this can do for people is sharing. So I touched on some of this already, but it's really powerful when I can share a mundane check-in and have it become interesting based on the activity that happens around it. So when I publish that to Flickr, publish it to Facebook, and people can add comments and upload their own photos, that becomes so much more valuable and interesting and compelling to people. And I've seen this especially true since I moved 6 months ago from Kansas City to Austin. With my kind of inner circle of Kansas City friends now, I'm able to follow essentially their every move, it feels like sometimes, you know, when they check in at the grocery store or the park, you know, walking, you know, their dog or something like that. And for a few of those people, I actually care about all of those things, you know, because I'm getting to participate in their life, and it's almost like I'm walking in their shoes, even though I'm 11 hours away. So this, we added photos to Gowalla just recently, like about 4 weeks ago. And it's amazing how much more valuable and interesting the service has become as a result of that. I think we've had 100,000 photo uploads in the first month or something pretty impressive like that for a feature that, you know, is not even, you know, everybody hasn't even updated their client yet. But one of the things that surprised me about it is how often food plays into photos. Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but like some absurd percentage of the photos uploaded to Gowalla are actually of people's dishes. And what's interesting there is that it's not just about sharing it in the moment with friends, but because photos in Gowalla get attached to your passport and to the spot itself, you're sharing it with everyone who's going to come to the restaurant in the future. So now every time I check in somewhere, I can flip through kind of like the wall of photos that have been uploaded there and actually see what the food is going to be like. Or if I'm planning a trip to another city, I can kind of map out my stops based on what I see ahead of time. So that was sharing. The third thing that I think is really interesting to kind of people at large is discovery. So specifically, I want to talk about events and hotspots. So another kind of new feature of Gowalla is that not only can you mark like physical places, but you can mark temporal places. So as you heard earlier, this conference today has a spot in Gowalla that you can check in at, and tomorrow that spot will be gone. No one will be able to check into it again, but you'll still always have it in your passport. And this actually came from user behavior. We didn't really anticipate this being a core feature of the app, but the users told us that it was because they created birthday parties and wedding showers and TV watching parties, and all kinds of stuff from day one. And it started cluttering up the system, so we realized we needed to kind of support this behavior because it's actually really interesting. Especially when you combine it with this other feature, which is hotspots. So it's sort of like trending Twitter topics. An abnormal number of people check in very frequently to a Gowalla spot. It gets promoted to the top of the list so that everyone in the city sees what's most active right now. So like you can see here in Austin the other day, the Austin on Rails meetup became a hotspot because, 10 or 15 people checked into it at once. And Alamo Drafthouse Cinema, which is an awesome theater down in Austin, became a hotspot, and I wondered why. I didn't think it would be abnormal on a Monday night to have that many check-ins. So I looked into it, and it was because Jon Favreau was there doing like a special surprise screening of Iron Man 2. So that's just an example of the kinds of discovery that you can have when you're tapped into social behavior and geography. So that's kind of the big areas where I think this technology is applicable to people and why it matters. Now I'm going to kind of shift gears and talk about what the business case is. So I've kind of divided this into three categories too. The number one thing that I want to talk about that's important to think about as you're wanting to promote your business or your cause or your organization is deals. And specifically, driving foot traffic through promotions. So this is the most talked about kind of application of location-based social networks. And it's the most obvious. I think Chris Brogan this morning even mentioned that like 10 plus years ago, he and other people were dreaming about how you could do proximity marketing, and if you walk past a Starbucks, it could offer you a free drink to lure you inside. So people have been dreaming about this for a long time, but it's exciting to me that it's starting to become reality. So with services like ours and some others today, you can actually start doing stuff like that and actually move people into your business just based on real world goods. So one example of this that we experimented with recently is during South by Southwest, we sponsored this taco truck called One Taco. We sponsored them because we love these tacos in our office, and we eat them like 3 times a week. It's a little bit absurd. But we love these tacos, and we wanted everyone to experience them during South by Southwest. So we told these guys, why don't you let us do an experiment where we'll give away virtual tacos in Gowalla. It'll pop up on people's random check-ins when they're at the Ed Williams keynote or something like that. And then when it's lunchtime, they'll come out to your truck and exchange their taco for a free one, and we'll just pay for it all because it's just an experiment, so let us buy these tacos. So we did it. Here's kind of what it looked like. So you just checked in, you found a free taco, and it kind of explains, go out to this corner and redeem it for a real one, right? And then here's what it looked like from the user's perspective when it actually happened. People started taking pictures of the real taco that they got in exchange for the virtual one. What was amazing about this experiment, though, is that after it was all said and done, and all the wrappers were cleaned up and everybody went home, the One Taco guys came in and we said, all right, how many tacos did you actually give away? We'll write you a check. And they said, you know what? Forget it. Because we sold 12 tacos for every one that we gave away. We had a line